In EVE Online, cherry picking is one of those terms that often sparks fierce debate. You see, the career path known as hacking involves locating remote sites in space and foraging them for loot, but by using a special module called a cargo scanner, capsuleers can peer inside of the loot containers without needing to hack them open. If a container has little to no value, it can be bypassed entirely. This is what is known as cherry picking. I ran a flash poll on my Discord, and of 28 participants, only 2 of them said that they always cherry pick. 11 of them said that they never cherry pick, and 15 of them said that they sometimes cherry pick. Contrary to common conception, the idea that cherry picking is some overwhelming constant among explorers may be quite wrong. The controversy over cherry picking comes from the idea of how the hacking sites themselves are located in the first place. To find one, capsuleers must use their probe scanner and observe cosmic signatures. This takes time though. It is only upon arriving to the hacking site when capsuleers are able to determine if the site has been cherry picked. This ends up creating frustration for capsuleers who frequently run into worthless, already run sites with no hope of any good loot. On the other hand, if the site is fully cleared, the cosmic signature disappears instantly. With no signatures lying around with bad loot in them, there's no chance for another capsuleer to come along and waste their time in this way. Although this is the main line of argument, I feel as though there's more to it than just basic manners. Indeed, cherry picking can be annoying and rude, but because of how it actually impacts the game environment, it could be construed as a positive thing for a number of reasons. By examining both extremes of the argument, we might be able to better understand these nuances and ultimately find some comfort in the commonality of cherry picking. So here's the pertinent question. Why cherry pick at all? If it's such a controversial activity and it annoys people, why bother with it? Well, of course the answer is, to borrow an economics term, rational self-interest. By cherry picking, capsuleers save time by skipping hacking challenges that don't reward them. By saving time, cherry pickers are also safer within the site itself since they are there for less time. But most importantly, cherry picking generally increases your ISK per hour, sometimes by substantial amounts. Now that we've built a common understanding of what makes capsuleers want to cherry pick, what about those that abstain? What drives a capsuleer to completely forego the benefits of skipping empty or worthless containers? The answer is simple: conditioning and ethics. For many capsuleers, the thought of leaving a mess behind is a bridge too far. And in many ways, I kind of respect these folk, even if I don't share their exact motivations for not leaving messes. Many capsuleers find themselves continually running into cherry-picked sites and often become frustrated when they warp into a site and there's nothing there. These capsuleers do not want to inflict this same pain onto others, and that's pretty nice of them. Indeed, there is no ulterior point here. Of course, there are also those who are a bit obsessive with completionism in games. These capsuleers are generally uncomfortable with the idea of not full clearing the site just based on their own personality. So after analyzing both perspectives and trying to isolate their motivations, something becomes clear to me. This really is not the best way to categorize the two ends of the argument. According to our very non-scientific poll earlier, virtually no capsuleers cherry pick all the time. This means that simply analyzing the two ends of the spectrum misses out on all of the nuance in the middle. So, let's try viewing things another way. Locals versus roamers. A local, for this argument's sake, could be thought of somebody who explores in the areas near their home. The reality is that local explorers are almost always the ones who feel the negative brunt of cherry picking. The reason for this is obvious. They have limited area to work with and it's shared amongst their allies. In many groups, there are even rules regarding cherry picking exploration sites for this exact reason. However, it's difficult to enforce, and with game theory in full swing, many blues end up cherry picking anyway. Combine this with the impact of roamers, and locals often have a very unpleasant exploration experience. It is therefore safe to assume that many locally exploring city dwellers have reasonable objections to cherry picking. Roamers, on the other hand, for the sake of this argument, could be imagined as capsuleers who intend to simply pass through an area. For roamers, the negative impact of cherry picking is almost non existent. The reason for this is that as a roamer, one can simply choose another direction and fly away. However, there is a very important bit of nuance here that I want to highlight. For the roamer, seeing cherry picked sites is often a blessing. Why? Because it almost acts as a non-verbal signal between roamers that the area is currently being explored. You might imagine it as something like a breadcrumb trail, or perhaps a slug trail. Combining this signal with the aforementioned safety and speed arguments, roamers really do have every incentive to cherry pick. It is therefore safe to assume that many roaming explorers take no reasonable exception to cherry picking. Ultimately, debates about a topic like cherry picking often comes down to basic game theory, but due to Eve's unique aspects, there tends to be a lot more involved than simple simulation. I believe it's more useful to discuss the topic by examining who the capsuleers are that deal with the issue. Instead of simply saying some people cherry pick, others don't, we can actually analyze incentives and playstyles. By thinking about why cherry pick, whom it benefits and whom it hurts, we can better understand each other. Cherry picking is not dogma. Your playstyle may change one day, and you may benefit from the stance opposite of the one that you currently hold on this issue. Perhaps for those who abstain from cherry picking, the next time you find a dud site, consider this a drawback of local exploration instead of a curse. And for those who always cherry pick or do it frequently, try to at least cognize the frustration of local explorers and offer them empathy in these conversations instead of antagonizing them. At the end of the day, both parties are explorers, and explorers are awesome.